what's up? Get to get back to doing what I love doing on this channel, which is just putting a deck list on the screen and talking about how to play a deck. Sort of after, I guess it's a week now of set seven now. Yeah, so we started really playing it on the Sunday, and we're actually about 5 days or so. We're not really a week. But I got to see that a lot of the Alice Pluto builds were actually working really, really well. So I I went back to it because I just thought it was performing really well. So I don't know why I would fix what ain't broken. And I didn't really understand why. I thought, so many other Sapphire Steel decks are so strong. Scrooge was always dominating against me whenever I played against it. I thought the meta would still be very dominated by Ruby Sapphire, and even though we're giving things ward, a lot of those things have less than two strength anyway, so they're getting eaten up. But no, there's so many positives to playing an Alice Pluto build right now. The fact that I wouldn't say purple's dead, but I think the only purple thing that's left is purple steel. Like Blurple is not really that scary anymore. Not really around as well either. Ruby Amethyst is pretty much gone. Like I haven't seen that anywhere. Emerald Amethyst was never a bad matchup for the deck anyway. So we got loads of positive things because the Fox and the Crab just aren't really the relevant cards anymore. And even into those matchups, now that we play the Hiram and Draw package, we seem to be able to outlast them. So overall, this build has been feeling really great, and I'll walk you through sort of some thoughts into different matchups and as well how to do the mulligan. I'd say, and as well, what surprised me even more that I thought, oh, because we've got the item package, we need to use Hiram and we need to use all these things. The deck's getting a bit more complicated. It is a different mulligan. It is definitely a little bit more complicated than it was in set six, but it's very much easier than I thought it was going to be. We can ink pretty much Hiram and the item package a majority of the time and just lean on the fact that we're going to be setting up, a two-drop that quests into Alice Pluto and probably play a Cogsworth and Baymax on top and just lock them out of the game and make these awkward board states. And I think we're also very fortunate that there's only really one red matchup left, which is Ruby Sapphire, and even all of them are cutting Be Prepared. So we don't even have to be afraid about Be Prepared, which was before we had to be like we have to lock in a certain amount of lore before they play Be Prepared and then get the manas down. The manas still are around. I think they're still very useful cards. So they're sitting around in the deck, but yeah, it's just really weird because you always have a perception of the meta from playing it in the previous one. So my perception of the meta was it's set six, and I want to play a deck that can win into that meta. And then sort of as we keep going, I'm like, I'm pretty much only playing mirrors and some Amethyst Steel decks that you just win by playing Bell on turn one, singing at the storm. Well, you don't do that every game, but like whenever you do that, it's just like an instant win against that deck. Some mirror, some of that, some blue green I keep seeing as well here and there. Lady in the Tramp decks, they're kind of fun. I think they can get some games past you, but yeah, actually seeing where the meta went and like the fact that last set purple was so high, it was very popular. Like it was probably the most popular color next to sapphire. And now it's pretty much gone. Like you're only seeing amethyst steel really around. So it's interesting to see. And of course, we're in a meta where challenging is not really that much of an important thing. You seem to be seeing the removal from Bell, from Scrooge, just seeing Zeus and stuff like that. So we're not really doing as much challenging, which makes me believe that Red Steel. I don't know how that deck is surviving in this meta, but people are still pushing it, so that's awesome. But I don't really see how that deck kind of lives anymore. But right now, yeah, it's a lot of just singing songs and singing removal. So if we have a card combo like Alice and Pluto, where we can say, right, we're going to give stuff ward, and you have to attack this one thing, which is really awkward to attack, which is the Pluto. So even if you want to challenge, but we know you're not setting up for challenges because your deck will be a lot about singing songs because that's what everyone's doing. Like three decks in the meta have the full song package of Let the Storm Strength, and then most of those decks as well are running Zeus's on top of that. So we're just going to give everything ward, and then we get to Cogtough, we'll give everything resist, and we're doing that game plan. It's even better because there's no crabs or there's very less crabs and foxes in the meta, which I didn't think Fox was the worst card because it wouldn't take out the Pluto, but playing Crab on a Chernobog just to run that into a Pluto was just like the worst thing. And that's gone now. So, and we even have even better things like we can play the Bell turn one now. And if they have a little character like a one drop that could pop the Pluto and take away his strength bonus, if they've got a Tipo as well, we can now sing some removal on that thing, Let the Storm, or something just to keep it more protected. So we even got a sort of card that protects this combo and getting it set up a little bit more. So yeah, it feels very well positioned. Was very much joyful to see all the people get amazing results with it, and hopefully I can join in as well now and try and get some good results for the deck as well. So this is sort of the direction I've gone with. I'm pretty sure a lot of people are going to be happy to see its price point is very low. I'm not doing this as a budget deck. This is just generally what I felt the best cards were for the list. You don't have to play the Enchanted Baymax. I don't know. I think Dreamborn just did that for me. I don't remember clicking on that one. But yeah, we'll go for this. Four drop Mulan. It's no four drop one drop Mulan at a 4x. It's not in there as your turn one. I think the only time I've ever really played it on a turn one is if I know I'm against a deck that hasn't got a Cindy or a Bell, and I just want to play something that I can trade in. So like a purple steel where I know they're going to Chernobog on one. I don't want to be on the draw and just playing a Porp unless I can get the Bell out. So having that down on turn one just to trade it in or just to put some board presence on is alright. But later on in the game, it can fill out the deck a bit more. A lot of the time you'll be double spelling, like on three you might play Smee and a one drop. It powers up your strength as well, just having these one drop cheap characters we can throw out. And sometimes you're going to do a deep mulligan for Bell turn one, and you're going to miss it. So you want to like start cleaning up the hand with the Mulan. And yeah, 2-1 is an awkward number for a lot of decks. So she's kind of just this all-round nice tool. I mean, pretty much every game we're aiming to get that Bell down turn one. But she's quite a versatile tool, so she's pretty nice to fit in there. Calhoun, she's been one that I kind of she's great, but if I'm saying, okay, I'm expecting the meta to not be very challenge based, having a card that required to challenge to get its like benefit, it's not inkable two drop, to get that benefit of that two lore, you have to challenge something, but we're not challenging as much in this meta. So she might be swapped out. I mean, I'm looking at Anna Braving the Storm, which is yeah, awesome card. That might be going in, it might not be. I'm kind of keeping Calhoun around because what I like right now is okay, it's a very sing removal based meta, but we still do have to do a bit of challenging and a bit of board presence. And the reason why we can't turn sideways is because a 3/3 Bell is gonna wipe your character out straight away, or a 3/3. So what it kind of means is I'm just basically trying to always aim to get a 3/3 down on turn two, by keeping the Calhoun in. But yeah, she's becoming less and less important. But I think right now definitely fine getting a 3/3 out on turn two, getting it questing, getting it controlling the board a bit. It's great. A couple docks in there. I think even that could go up to three. It's strange because you can end up just inking the entire higher import package and just going off the top, and then dock off the top is great. So keeping a certain amount of it, I could see these two numbers flipping around, maybe a 3/3 on both of them. But yeah, right now two docks great. Just knowing that you have that ability to draw it into a dock and just like keep the gas going on the deck and just keep drawing more cards. And when you might play out to the top, you might do your Smee, Alice, Pluto, Cogsworth, and then you're out of cards, and then you draw off the top of dock, and you're back in the game with, you're gonna play it and then double spell, hopefully, and then like have a couple cards for the next turn and just keep getting over the line that way. So yeah, awesome fit in there. Just trying to find the right ratios as well. We're still very early on, but two has felt very solid. And also as well, it's very nice to not have like triple dock or whatever like you used to have when you have four of them. Mr. Smee is just yeah, it's the two drop of two drops. It's the best card in the two drop slots from me. One of the best cards, so that's awesome. I don't think I need to explain why Mr. Smee is in there. Alice, we'll cover Alice and Pluto. Alice and Pluto, yeah, great. It's also stated, everyone knows the combo. You play the Alice down, you ward up the Pluto, then they have to run everything into, or they have to run enough into the Pluto to remove it. And then maybe you play another Pluto, and everything has wards, so it all has to be a challenge-based interaction. So that's just great. I think as well as worth noting is Alice is pretty decent because sometimes you just want to get a three drop down on three and you want it to stick. You have Pete and you have Alice. These are two cards that they can't really interact with. I think the only answer to this is Elsa exert it, run something in and take it out. But Alice, she's got ward, she's gonna stick. She's gonna stick, and then it's not always great making Alice sing because you do want that lore. But knowing that you get a three cost that's gonna stick and that strength isn't gonna be removing it, is awesome. And then you can do so much with it. You can start warding up stuff. So just on that turn three, guaranteeing you're going to have a power play of a turn with Alice or Pete, has been awesome. So it's great to see her back in there. I think on the draw she's still not that bad as well because then you get to a point where if you get her down, you get her to maybe someone else sings removal or whatever, or maybe she sings the removal. You can start tempo swinging the board back in your favor. So just having something on three, it has ward, it's not going to go anywhere. That's awesome. The strength is a little bit of a downside, but definitely, yeah, it's great to see the card back. Bell, the centerpiece of the deck, in my opinion. Sadly, I know Alice is probably what I would assume most people are the centerpieces, but we generally are deep mulliganing for this turn one every game. So, yeah, she's definitely the centerpiece. She sings Let the Storm Rage On. She's pretty much going to win you a bunch of games. You can sometimes even miss your turn two, or your turn two can just be piece of items or a Mulan. But because you've got that 3/3 down on turn one, it's just you've won the board so hard. And if she's singing removal, it's even better. So, Generally, like you just go for that high roll, and then the deck's sort of designed because it's quite fairly cheap, and you got a lot of items to spam that if you miss a turn one, you're most likely going to land into some sort of game plan. So we can really just go for every turn. I put a couple of Lawrence in there. The deck sort of just need finishing out. We're trying some Benja, but it just felt always like I don't know why I'm breaking this item just for them to get it back with Tamatoa, and I never really loved it. So we just put Lawrence in there, and it was like I don't feel like I'm winning the Ruby Sapphire matchup more because I'm playing Benja, especially with Ruby Sapphire players now not playing the coil on two. That kind of is just yeah the card for me is falling a bit behind. So we'll just put a solid three drop in the deck. Of course, playing a 4/4 that could trade up really amazingly is just awesome. So yeah, I think that's very much the flex spot of the deck as this two cost spot, as this two count slot here, and I think John Silver could go, and I've seen a lot of people playing John Silver. So yeah, definitely there's just tons of options you could put in there instead of that if you didn't want to play two Lawrences in there. I think saying that though, if we get to DLC points and we get to a point where we're going to have open deck lists, I think if you're running a list and you don't have Benjas in there and you play into a Ruby Sapphire, they will fully just abuse that from you because right now I think a lot of them aren't playing it on two because I don't think it's the correct place to play it. I'm not a Ruby Sapphire player, but I don't think you play it on two. I think you do ramp on two. But they also know that if they play it on two and you Benja it, they are so far behind. They are fairly out of the game at that point. But also if you do it, sometimes they just rule the Benja, and then it's like this is just really weird game plan, and I feel like I'm not progressing anything. So I'd rather just try to get the ward out and just play this and use this as a stronger three drop into other matchups where I need to start trading back. So yeah, Pete 4x Pete, you just play 4x Pete because it's 4x Pete because the card's busted. You know, it's just you can go 1, 2, 3, play Pete, sink strength. Later on in the game, you turn everything sideways, play Pete, and lock them out of any answer. So we just keep that at 4x. He's an amazing tool, an amazing three drop as well. Hiram, it does feel weird because a lot of the games you will be just completely inking Hiram. He will not be relevant. Him and a bunch of the pop scores can go in the inkwell just so you can focus on that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 curve. But I think with Hiram, what's interesting is I've had games where I think, right, I'm not going to win the aggression because maybe I'm on the draw and I'm against Amethyst Steel, and even if I get the bell turn one, they might just triple one drop me and they might genie me and they might just get over the line. So what you can do is you set up your bell turn one, you set up your items, and then you go for a bit more of a longer game, and you can use Hiram to draw the game out a bit longer, and you can out resource them. It's mad to out resource an Amethyst deck, but if it's an Amethyst Steel dock deck, and you're focusing on using the Hiram to draw more, you're just going to outlast them and have a better performance than them. And you can do that into the Amber Steel matchups as well. You can even do that into Ruby Sapphire. It's quite incredible that you can go to a point where they will answer your board, but because you've been using Hiram efficiently, you can get the cards back. I think if you're really focusing in on the Ruby Sapphire matchup, maybe I'd look at putting the Tamatoa back in. I'd pretty much at that point start looking at Artabax's list, to be honest with you, because right now we are very effectively doing a decent game into the Ruby Sapphire matchup. I think on the play you're very, very favoured. On the draw you can still win the game. But we're not thinking about that matchup as much. I just feel like I'm not playing into it enough. Definitely am thinking about it a bit because you have to. It's Ruby Sapphire, but yeah, I'm not thinking about it as much as the other matchups that I want to just basically try and get my two O's in. Um, but Hiram, yeah, he's been an amazing tool, and because the whole entire item package and himself are inkable, he can put in the inkwell when you don't want him, when you just want to play this aggressive aggro line. But when you want to draw the game out, you can start getting the items down. Maybe on three, play a Smee and an item, then play the Hiram, then you've got Hiram set up for singing or drawing more cards. So yeah, he's just been very interesting to have in the deck. Having him at a 4x seems fun. It feels like if I'm gonna play him, I'm gonna play him at a 4x. So yeah, and even later on in the game, they could set up a very winning board state, and you've got a bunch of singers set up. Maybe you have a Bell and a Pete set up, but you don't have the answers in your hand, but you do have a Pop score. You play a Hiram, or you play a Pop score, play a Hiram, and you draw three cards deep, find your strength, and take them out. So yeah, he's been very cool, and it's nice to see him sort of actually fit fairly naturally into the deck. Also into a steel meta as well, just like having a 6 health body character is pretty good. Like it's weird. He's only questing for one, but the ability to draw two cards as well as he's 6 health. It's kind of why I put the Baymax in. It's just awkward. Steel decks don't really like that. He's gonna probably sit around or require two drops to hit it. So yeah, he's just been quite important in the deck right now. Um, Pluto is just there for the Alice Pluto combo. Of course, Pluto is still an amazing 5/5. I think the problem is though playing him right now when there is no when if you don't ward him up, is the let the Storm Rage on and Strength is out there. So let the Storm Rage on, pop a Pluto and a Calhoun in. It's just like always feels disgusting when your opponent does that. So I pretty much am always inking him unless I can get the Alice down. I'd maybe play him with the Cogsurf out as well. Baymax in there because, as I say, I'm not respecting Ruby Sapphire as much, but keeping it as a 2x meant I'm not also going off the deep end on that. But yeah, you can get these amazing board states of Smee, Alice, Pluto, Cogsworth, then Baymax on top, and any steel deck pretty much has no way to enter that, like, or do anything. And then on top of that, you're just every turn gaining like 6 to 8 lore, or however much you want to quest for. So yeah, he's been awesome in these steel matchups, and we're just pretty much taking full advantage of red not being around as much anymore. With Ruby Amethyst dropping, I feel like you could still go for a day where you might not see any red Ruby all day because you might end up dodging all the Ruby Sapphire matchups. They might be all getting knocked out by all of these aggro decks, and like even this deck wins on the play. And then you only get the steel matchups like Amethyst Steel and the mirrors and stuff like that. So yeah, he's just been really cool. Like I'd like to say it's a full steel meta, but it isn't because Ruby Sapphire is still around. But yeah, right now he's been more important than ever. Also giving you like lore to get you over the line. You're now getting more value out of Lawrence as well, which is kind of cool. And then the Smees as well, and you're able to trade things, keep Pluto alive for more. So yeah, just these four, I'd say, as a combo is awesome. If you get a board where it's Alice, Pluto, Cogs, and Baymax, and they're just working all together, it's phenomenal. It's pretty much like pick up your cards you've done as long as you're playing against a steel deck. And then if you got that Smee down on two, and you off the top, you just keep throwing more characters at them. They're so far behind. Cogsworth at 4x, yeah, I think for all the other Sapphire Steel decks, shouldn't be really playing Cogsworth at 4. It helps us improve the Alice Pluto combo lock, so Cogsworth is definitely very important there. And he also has ward, so he's kind of a locked in 2 lore once you play him on the board against Steel decks again, of course, not against Sisu. So yeah, he kind of fits the game plan like he did in set 6, so keeping that all together as a combo is awesome. Let the Storm Rage on. If Bell can sing that into certain matchups, into Amethyst Steel, into an Amethyst Steel that's open Cinderella, it's just a non-game for them. It's going to lock them out. So we're keeping that at 4x because it's such a high roll that you can just basically get free games from her singing Let the Storm Rage on turn 1 against certain targets. So yeah, definitely a 4x. And later on in the game, it's never bad to just sing a Let the Storm Rage on, draw a card, do 2 damage. Pop a Lawrence, pop a Pluto, plop whatever, and then or just do the maths to finish something off. So that's really awesome as well. Strength for the Rage and Fire again. Instead of us having to go 1, 2, 3, Pete on 3, then sing the strength. We can now go 1, 2, 3, sing strength on that turn because we could have the bell out on turn 1, which is awesome. Which was always our weakness against Amber Steel because turn 1 they could have um, Cinderella down. They could do 1, 2, 3, then sing strength back at us, and we lose our 2-drop or whatever. So yeah, it's just phenomenal. It's good. This is the item package, and then the item package. This is the song package, as they call it now, as we has the item package as well. So we have 2 of the most powerful packages in the world. Don't really need to go to the Pop schools because yeah, like, you just have to play them with the Hiram and the Veil, don't you? But it is worth noting like how useful the Porp can be on the Lawrence, Smee, Pluto, anything like that, and Fortisphere buffing a Hiram and then full questing as well. Like you always when your turn ends, just think right. I've got a bunch of items on the side. What is the most important thing I can do here? Should I wait and maybe top deck a Hiram or a Bell? Should I use them on my characters? Should I heal something? Should I bodyguard something? Or, maybe if you have a bell in hand and have the items, but you've only got 1 card in your hand and it is a bell, or you've only got 2 cards and you go, right, do I need to pop this item to get this bell out because that will help? Or do I wait and see if I'm going to draw a Hiram and then get to use more value out of the item and draw more cards? So always at the end of the turn, I think you should look at your items and think, and what are they doing for me? Do I need to use them any better? So yeah, very versatile, very interesting cards for just being 1 cost, like cantrip cards. And Muktuk Manor as well, like you can just apply some insane pressure. I would say because Ruby Sapphire, you're going to lose the board at some point. They stick around for that matchup, but into loads of other matchups, if you're getting this entire lock set up going sideways, and then you just play some manas on top, it's awesome. Blue green seems to be around for quite a bit as well still. So I kind of like it for blue green. For some reason, they basically sing "You're Welcome" on it, but it kind of makes them find that card and sing it on there, and then you get a couple cards, and then their Clarabelle pops off. But overall, I just find McDuckman is pretty useful. It feels pretty terrible into a Sapphire Steel ramp deck because they can play Bell into like a free Scrooge, and they're pretty much there on removing it. But yeah, I think it definitely has to stick around. I think if you have no mana and your opponent just knows that they just have to keep the board tidy, then win. It's kind of a bit tricky. So yeah, definitely keep it in there. We have to respect Ruby Sapphire a little bit, and they're also just really good pressure later on in the game into a lot of matchups, especially without all of the crabs and foxes again I'm mentioning aren't really in the meta. So we have this great ability to just um, like take advantage of them without people doing as many rush cards. Like Maui is still not going to clear it. They need a Maui and a Tala, but you could set a Bell up, shoot the Tala, and remove it. So going into this, I'll do just a couple mulligans for like blind games. So I mean, these mulligans are going to be very fairly dull because say if you're on the play, you want to keep the Porp School, send it all back, and then boom. You've got some fairly awkward inks there because you really wish you wouldn't ink, and I think maybe the deck. I don't think his deck really does struggle with an uninkable problem. It has 14 the 13, sorry, uninkables right now. But imagine if we cut the Calhoun down, we could go down to 10 uninkables, which is a just insanely amazing number for Lorcana and place them with Calhoun. But yeah, Ink get the bell out, and if you're on turn one against certain decks, like just singing at the storm on them is just going to lock them out completely. And even if it's against Daisy, you could sing let the storm over 2 turns, draw 2 cards, remove the Daisy, and then you should be drawing into a fairly decent hand. So we do another game. Like if you're on the draw, again, it's just fairly dull mulligans. Send it all back. We don't land. It's very interesting. I think on the play, about a 56% chance to land the bell. If you're on the draw, you have a 60% chance. So I've even joked that I prefer going second sometimes, just so I have that 1% more chance to draw bell. But even here, we haven't got a bell right now. But you would, if you're on the draw, you would draw 1 card, and then you would draw another card from the Porp School. I think unless you know it's a very aggressive Amethyst Steel deck, I would just get the Porp School set up because also it's set up for the Hiram, and when you do draw that bell, like if your turn two is play Calhoun or Smee and then pop and play a bell as well, that okay, bell turn one would be better, but that's still an amazingly powerful turn. You've played three threes on turn two. You played a 5 ink turn on turn two. So that's just awesome. So how do I get to do another one? Yeah, I find it so if you maybe were playing against, say, Ruby Sapphire and you were on the play, I think I would just keep the Smee. Sometimes it's like you need to know the matchup, like do I need that bell turn one? Is that going to win me the game, or do I just need good questers out there? And again, yeah, you missed the that's kind of an awkward hand. There's a lot of fours there actually, but you missed the uh, Bell on turn one, but this hand would be so unplayable against Ruby Sapphire if you didn't even have the Smee down. But I think with this, yeah, you'd ink one of these Hirams, get the Porp down, play the Smee. Hopefully you land into some more cards. You should do because you've been drawing 2 cards by that point. Just to get like playing stuff on board, and then you can play the Hiram, knowing that they're going to CC or B prep, and then you're going to have a bunch more resources in hand. Maybe they're just one-1ing and removing a Hiram every turn by playing Brawl or Sisu, and they're not really focusing on playing a Maui to remove stuff, so you can just get advantage that way. And on top of that, you had a dock in hand, so if ever that game plan falls flat, you can send it all back and look for more. I think right here is kind of interesting because you've got Porpskull into Bell. So this is a game on the draw. So you keep these two. You got the Calhoun and the Lawrence. There's some valid reason. I think you just send this McDuck map down a back. I think even to pretty much all matchups. Maybe not even if it's blind. Maybe Ruby Sapphire. But if you're on the draw, I still think it's kind of rough. I think there's valid reason to keep the Pete, valid reason to keep the Hiram, but I think what you should do is always just go for the high rolls you can. And what I'm saying here is look for the song. Because the deck sort of it should land on its knees or land on its knees, land on its feet, not land on its knees. Doesn't make any sense. Land on its feet, even if you you know go for the high roll and look for that bell turn one, but you don't find it, you should still be finding yourself a strong curve. I think you do have some matchups though where if you know Alice Pluto would be pretty good, and you've got the Alice Pluto in hand, and maybe you've got a Smee. Like if you had a Porp School Smee, Alice Pluto, I think you could send the rest back and keep those ones, and maybe keep one for Inkable. Um, but here, like say again, you could if you want to do a bit more of a safe mulligan, you can keep the Smee. I think on the play that's definitely fine. You can keep the Smee and send back, ink the Porp School here, play the ink the Fort Sphere here, play the Porp School, then play the Smee next turn, play the Pete, and then sing the Let the Storm. Hopefully they haven't high rolled and got their bell. But yeah, it also tends to favour the more aggressive mulligan play. I mean, here this is just basically garbage, so you just send it all back. And then get punished because you don't get an item turn one. But yeah, really, I think you just really want to be going for that high roll and try and find that bell turn one. And like I say, like over 50% of your games you'll get it. So you want to, and you could just be running hot that day, and it ends up being like pretty much all your games you get it. And in a best of three set, you will get it a probably more than two out of the three games. So that's fine. And then, of course, the deck's designed to be fairly cheap and fairly land on its feet. And if not, Mulan, Popsicles, and Fortisphere is all just filter-based cards, so they should just lean you into getting a good enough hand. And as aggro as this deck is, if you went to a mirror, say, and they did get a bell turn one, as aggro as this deck is, bell turn one is very, very scary, and you didn't get yours. Yeah, it's upsetting. But the aggro part doesn't really happen until turns 3, 4, and 5. So for those earlier turns, if you're just dropping a bit of tempo, you've only played a pop turn one, you might draw into the bell, pop the bell, play the Smee, and then you've gone three wide, and they're still going to be on one or two lore. So overall, I think it's a very interesting deck. I think it's very cool to have a Sapphire Steel deck that's not going to be tons of money to buy in for an entry point without the Scrooges and Tamatoas. We're just really utilizing that bell. Alice Pluto seems pretty great right now. But yeah, more testing. If anyone tries the list out, please let me know. I always love hearing about it. I think that's the thing that's helped me the most with this game is getting to see what everyone else is playing, and I got to look at all the awesome matchups and everything that everyone played over the weekend and how well they did. It's awesome to see. And just on another side note, that's got nothing to do with this deck. Ali Sweetie, my better half, has done a vlog of our Axion event. So if anyone wants to see that, should be out today. I think maybe out the same time this video is out, so I'll put it in the description if it is. But yeah, thank you very much for listening to me talk about my Kiwi deck for like 30 minutes. Thank you.